Just getting set up here. Before we get started, oh, we got spooked. Trying out a new camera angle. Keep an eye on the interns. So we're going to be doing a portfolio review from Barry Hall. He's a freelance colorist, and he wanted to do some. He dropped off a portfolio. This is something that subscribers to this channel can do in the Discord. Only subscribers. If you want to drop off a portfolio and get it reviewed, you can do that. All you got to do is subscribe. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free. You make a Twitch account, tie them together. You can subscribe for 1 month for free. You just subscribe for that month. Drop off the portfolio. I will review it either on stream or off. Barry was kind enough to let us review it on stream, which is awesome. We're going to get to that in 1 second. I have I took like a bunch of notes. We need to make me bigger temporarily. Okay. Additionally, today is New Comic Book Day, and the Milk Wars start. So if you're in the shop, I think it's the Doom Patrol one is the first one. The Cave Carson one is listed here on like the fourth one. That's the one I did with Langdon Foss. I think they're coming out weekly or bi-weekly. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, that's in stores now. It's starting right now. You should definitely pick it up. While you're there as well, The Realm, #5. This is like the series conclusion. Or not series conclusion. God, no. This is the arc conclusion. This is the 5th issue. This is what everything has been like, kind of like culminating to. You're going to want to pick it up. This is... I think the best issue that Jeremy and I have worked on. It's also the worst cover that I think I've done, because I was trying to do the cover before the hurricane that hit Florida was rolling in, and I was like stressed out of my mind. I was not in the right headspace for it. Best issue, worst cover. Go pick it up. Anyway. We should get into this. Oh, by the way, also, I will mention I'm excited to ink a mermaid today for the sketchbook challenge. I haven't done that yet, but I'm like super stoked. I'm gonna try to ink it in like 2 phases rather than just jumping in with a brush. It's gonna be a good time. All right. I don't know if Barry is here or not, but even if he isn't, he can definitely catch the VOD. We're gonna click over. All right, so this is oh, he is here. Excellent. So this is Barry's Twitter page. So if you want to follow, you can. I just figured I'd front load it with a little bit of promotion for him, because he is very brave by being the first one in this in the portfolio review. And I want to be completely clear before we start. Like I'm gonna treat this portfolio like you are giving it to an editor, and I'm gonna give you all the notes that I think like an editor would be thinking about. And I'm gonna try to put you on the path to getting to a place where you can land jobs. That's the goal of, I don't want, and like, I don't want you to feel like I'm coming across as harsh or anything like that. Barry's in the Discord a lot. He's always hanging out. I like Barry. This isn't like a judgment on him. I just want to give him good, constructive feedback so that he can make good steps going forward. And that's what I would do with any of the portfolios. So anyway, let's jump into it. Here is the link that he gave me for the portfolio. The first thing that I notice is like there is a lot going on here. This is a lot of work. And that can be fine. The chat is wishing Barry good luck. So that can be fine, but like these also like we clicked the blackout that he did. He did like a vintage style blackout thing, and this is now multiple pages. So this can be like really overwhelming. The first thing, my first impression is that you got to cut this down, man. Like, we'll go through everything because I want to give you good feedback. But if you want to pass this to a editor, you got to cut this down. And I think there's easy cuts to make within this. For example, I would try to include sequential art only, because when I was starting, I mean, we've talked a lot about like when the pitfalls that I had when I started, and tough reviews that I've had when I've started that have like grown me as an artist on this channel before. So when you're starting, I kind of like had this idea like, oh, I could be hired for covers, but like that doesn't really happen except for like the top people in the industry. So basically anything that's like a pinup, like this piece right here, it's kind of useless in a portfolio, because this doesn't let me know that I can hire you for a sequential book. This is just like, oh, you did a thing. And I wanted to talk like real quick about not only like focusing the portfolio, but also like what is a good curated portfolio and like what's a good Instagram. Like, because this website is ArtStation, and it kind of has like a functionality of like, it's like a social thing that you update all the time, and then it's also a portfolio, and it kind of doesn't do either super well. There's a lot of stuff on here that I think is cool, and I think it's cool you're making work, but like you don't need to necessarily post it. Like this, definitely cut this, because it's marker rendering. And it's cool if you want to make a marker rendering, if you're like looking to make commissions or do commissions and you want to show marker rendering stuff. That's awesome. You need to make a separate marker rendering thing. Like I want you to be on the ball for focusing up for jobs within comics. And this is just something that, even though it's cool, is like not something that's, you're never going to like land a job where they're going to be like, all right, now we know that you're technically proficient in Photoshop, but we're just going to marker render this whole book. Like that's not going to happen. So like this is something that I think could either go in a separate portfolio if you were looking to make, you know, a lot of marker commissions, or something that could be done on like an Instagram or something like that. So like I would definitely cut this. And then there's like, you know, this is a hack and slash Comic-Con variant. Also, you don't need to do this. You don't need to include the original line art. That's something that I did when I started too. People can tell, like you're not like totally, you know, gonna obfuscate, like, you know, cover up the art or anything like that. Hey, Canetti, what's up? So you're going to want to like, you know, aside from this being like basically a pinup, you're also, which is something you don't want to include. You want to include, you know, sequential art stuff. You don't need to kind of do this stuff either. Like, so by getting rid of all of the pinups and by getting rid of all of like the extra stuff, like the marker renderings and the black and white art, you can kind of tighten up the whole thing. So with that in mind, we're gonna jump into the pieces. But yeah, I feel like if you take those are like easy steps you can take. Like that's like an hour's worth of work just to like curate the portfolio. Excuse me, I'm sucking down coffee. So, all right, let's jump into some stuff. here's one of Schoonover's pieces. It's Namor. Um, this is actually one of the more successful pieces. Like, I know that I was telling you not to include pinups and stuff, and I stick by that, but this is one of the more successful pieces. You're starting to put like blue into everything, which is really good. I noticed that from a lot of your pieces, like the Batman stuff especially. This is really cool, by the way. That the fact that you have like Batman 608 and the Spider-Man stuff, and you can click it and it separates all the Batman stuff. That's really great. But the only thing is, it's like it's backwards, which this is another thing that like is an easy fix for you to do to tighten up the portfolio. Just like delete them, reload them up so that they read right, so that it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, instead of reversed. But yeah, so I noticed with the Batman stuff, and you know, again, we don't need this stuff. I know Jim Lee is proficient, and we're gonna talk about like picking, deciding what line art to work over. Would you suggest making an online portfolio on ArtStation, or rather a website blog? Okay, so I wouldn't do a blog, but I would do a Squarespace site. The problem with ArtStation is like I said before, like you look at this, and because comics are already like boxed in with gutters and stuff, like this turns into like white noise. Like you can't tell where pages are beginning and ending, and it's just like it does this. ArtStation forces you to do like these squares. I don't know. It's not where you want to be. It's tough because there's like no gutter between the pieces. I've heard that like there's like another feature for ArtStation where you can kind of click over and then it'll add gutters between the pieces. I think that might be more visually just better, even though it's going to cut them into boxes. But yeah, so the Batman pages, you're using a lot of like local color. Like, you know, the pillars are gray, Batman's like a blue-gray, Batman's a gray, this is a yellow, and it's very like you picked it straight out of like the color picker over here. You know, you're like, oh, yellow belt. And that's fine to start, but then you got to start thinking about like, you know, the atmosphere around Batman and like the time of day that he's in. I think they're a paid themes. Oh, paid theme. I read that as plaid themes. But you're just use the free one. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I can tell that you're like starting out, so you know, before you jump into like paid stuff, I completely understand you wanting to get feedback and everything. When you get to the point where you're like, I'm ready to start showing these to editors, you're gonna want to like change it up, glitz it up a little bit. Plaid Batman is a bold choice. Yeah. This is serviceable for like you and me like shooting the shit and talking about your work. Totally fine. But like if you want to pass it to editors, I would definitely up the game. All right, so like Batman uses a lot of like, you're using a lot of like local color. And what do I mean by that? Local color is like, so I did this like little terrible drawing, and now that Eric Canetti is here, this is going to be awkward. But I did this little terrible drawing, and it's kind of terrible on purpose. This is local Joe, and he's full of local color. He's got a yellow hat, he's got a red shirt, there's a blue background, he's in the middle of the day. The colors are what they are. You know, we're not obfuscating it in any way. Like, we're not coloring the atmosphere. He's not like in a snowstorm. He's just like middle of the day, local color, local Joe. And I get the same vibe from what you got going on here. Like the building is brick back here. We can make this bigger. Can we make this bigger? So like the building is brick back here, and like Croc is green and Batman is blue and gray, and the barrels are gray, and it's like, it's all like adding up to hey, it's Local Joe. Yeah. We're going to get into Local Joe because I feel like Local Joe can help you, Barry. So like you end up with just this all of this like very like it's not necessarily wrong, but it is wrong. It's a weird thing because like you know, you want to like dazzle people. You want to like really show off your skill. You want to like really direct the eye. And when everything's kind of like this local color, you end up in a situation where it's turning into like a visual kind of like white noise. And it also isn't super interesting. But like I can see like you were kind of doing more local colors there, but then we go over to the Namor, the Submariner over here, and like I can see you like starting to be on the path, you know, like where you're like washing the whole thing in blue. Like his skin tone's a little bit gray. The yellow isn't like yellow, capital yellow. It's like a dull, like the blue is washing it in like a really good way. This is like you on the path. This is what you want to be doing. So, and if you need to do like, you know, a bunch of like bang out a bunch of like pinups just to like experiment, by all means do that. Like we're gonna talk about like Local Joe in a second as like a way for you to like try things out, stay on your game. And I put a link in the Discord for Local Joe, and we're gonna talk about like what you can do to like change up your game a little bit. By making this gigantic, I think it's a little confusing on the screen. There we go. So, and like you're doing it here too. Like you're starting to use like washes of color. Like I can tell that you've washed Spider-Man with like a little like a dark red or something because his blues are turning into purple, which is perfect. That's the mentality you want to be in. That's the mentality you want to be in. But like by using this bold white on the webs and on his eyes, you're losing that color unity. Like they should be like a little bit pink. You want to like keep all that color unity. I think that too, by the way, this is a rough piece to render because Stegman did like all of the he did like a lot of shadow in it. So, but like Schoonover left a lot of real estate to do a lot of rendering, and I can see where you're like kind of thinking about it, but it's not quite reading with the form. Like if you have a light source that's like hitting him right here, you know, you want the top of this leg not to be in shadow. You kind of just like traced the lines that Schoonover put down rather than creating form. Hey, Nimish just subscribed. Welcome to High Society. We're going to get your portfolio next on here. And I'm going to show you, we're going to go back to this Schoonover piece. And I'm going to show you some ways that you can kind of like bump it up, like, and think about color a little bit better. And I'm going to show you about rendering form a little bit too. Give you some tips. This is Sean Murphy's Neo Joker. I don't know who did Kurt Kroll. I don't know who this is. So here's the thing, like Stegman is a pro, which is good you're using his line art. Schoonover is a pro. It's good you're using his line art. But like when I see something like this in a portfolio, even if it's like your bud and you want to like work on stuff, this doesn't put your best foot forward because like, you know, I see this and like you're on the path again where you're like doing washes of color and it looks good, but like the diamonds aren't like right, you know, and like the rendering's like a little questionable on the black, you know, like it's like a little too much on her face, and it's just kind of like adds up to like you're not putting your best foot forward. So you want to work on professional line art. I think the blackout stuff is some of your best stuff, and here's why. I know you're doing like a whole zip tone thing, and normally I would say like don't include any of this stuff, but like the texture works really good. You're really like you're doing it in a very like interesting way, and I think partly why this is like some of your best stuff is because you're not getting bogged down in like when you work in color, you gotta like, all right, I gotta do color theory, I gotta do rendering, I gotta do atmospheric perspective, I gotta make the storytelling work. You're like juggling all these balls in the air, and by just being like, okay, I'm not gonna do any rendering, I'm just gonna put down solid color. I think that by doing that, you've like eliminated one of the things that was like turning you around kind of thing. Like by just thinking about the color, by just thinking about that, you've created like a better roadmap for yourself. You've created like something that is you're thinking about color and that's it. And I think that's a good step for you. A lot of times like when I start a page, I'll crack a page and I will if I think I know what I should be doing, I'll like start in and I won't have a plan, and then I'll get to the next page of like the same scene, and like the wheels start falling off the wagon. Like I have to go in and be like, okay, we're going to make this room this color. We're going to make the atmosphere this color. We're going to make, the shadows, we're going to use this color for shadows, and we're going to start there. If I have a plan, I can like knock it out of the park. If I'm like, oh, I'm a competent colorist, I'll just wing it. It always goes awry. And like with this, by eliminating like rendering and all that, you like, I feel like you went in with a plan. And I think that that's important. There's a couple things that we can do to like knock this stuff up, and we're going to talk about that. But mostly I think this stuff is really good. I wouldn't do more of this because like the whole zip tone, off register plates and texture stuff, it's like I've done it maybe like 3 or 4 times in 15 years of a career. Like you're not going to get hired based on it. It's cool stuff, but like it's cool for like an Instagram feed, but it's not cool for like a portfolio. Again, you got to work on like professional line art. Like this line art has a lot of like dynamic problems that, it's like you could color this perfectly and I would still see all the dynamic problems. That said, you're kind of falling into a place where like the flashlight should be a high. Like it should be a flashlight. Like it should be white, and you can put like a little flare on it. But like instead it's kind of like washed with a gray and it's turning the whole thing gray, and the whole thing kind of like flattens out. I'm not going to say too much more about this because, quite frankly, because it's not pro work, I don't think it should be in a color portfolio for you. So we're going to move on. The marker stuff, like I said, if you want to make a marker portfolio, that's awesome. I don't have a ton of experience with markers. I think this looks great. Like, it is what it is. It's markers. I don't know. But yeah, I would, if you're going to want to do a marker portfolio for like commissions and stuff like that, I would make it separate. Again, stuff that's good for Instagram. So we can, all right, let's jump into this, because there's a couple things that are going on that I feel like you should avoid, and people should avoid in general. The pasting in the photo, like I get what you're doing with the Len tribute, and like pasting in the DDP, like this isn't this isn't in here in the original. I wouldn't do this. You're like blowing up a logo and it's starting to look blurry and it looks kind of bad. It's detracting from like everything else you got going on. It's also the most black next to the most white, which is making my eye go here for like the direction of the piece. And that's not what we want to do. We want to frame Cassie. I think this is Cassie. We want to like frame her really well. And I can see you thinking about that because you're doing something actually really cool where you're like taking the black in the rigging up here and knocking it out, and like you're pushing back the background back here, which is like A+. You want to be doing that. But like you haven't quite followed through with the rest of it. Like you can wash like the whole background with like a blue. In fact, we can do that. Let's I can show you what I mean. Like you can take like the whole background. We're going to do a very lazy selection. And this is what I'm talking about like framing, because I think you run into this problem a lot on the Batman pages too. So like you can do like a cool background and a warm foreground like that, and it's like night and day, you know? You're especially when you like zoom out, like this turns into white noise down here, like at the bottom of the thing. But like this turns into like, oh, we're framing Cassie like perfectly. And this was just like simple washes, which I know you're doing because I see it happening, and that's the path you want to go down. Like a lot of simple washes to like unify the palette. A lot of times when I do washes, I think about it like I'm painting the air between the person and me. You want to think about it like that. Another way that you can, keep Cassie up here or keep the focus up here is if you take, So you can take like a dark blue and just like multiply it and drag a gradient through it like that. It's like a little intense, but if you did something like that, now like the darkest darks and the highest highs are right up here, like right where Cassie's face and chest are, which is like where you want everything going on. Like, and you can even just like, you can push it up further by like doing something like that, like, hey Johnny Lighthands. So you can like really, that's like two ways to kind of like frame things in a more like more interesting way. You can do it through color and you can do it through value, which is basically what we're doing with the gradients. Let's go back. Okay. Giant pointers. Yep. This looks good. I mean, this is you. I see you doing washes and stuff. I would avoid doing a lot of textures like this because the textures tend to flatten it out. But other than that, like, this looks fine. You know, it's a little bit boring. Whoa, I saved it. I saved it with a click. It's a little bit boring, but there's nothing wrong with it. Like this is when I was saying like you're doing washes and stuff, you're making this kind of like dusty thing. It's a little bit brown, which is why I said it was boring. But you could take something like this and like kind of just like adjust the colors a little bit. Part of the reason why it feels a little bit brown, by the way, and a little bit flat is because you have kind of a lot of the same values happening. Like this sky, these mountains, this ground, it's all kind like this guy's pants, it's all kind of like the same value. And so when you do that, it starts to like flatten things out. if you did like I know this is like we're really guerrilla coloring here right now, but like if you raise the values here, and then like we've started to like change the values. So like even if now we see it like there's like higher highs here, there's higher highs here, higher highs here, and it like it makes it more dynamic, it makes it more interesting. And this is all like we're kind of going through everything, and I'm trying to give you as much time as everything needs, but a lot of the times we're like kind of having the same sort of problems. I think that this is all just stuff that you're on the path, you're figuring it out, you just got to clock more time in. Like I don't want to like harp on you or make you feel like you're doing it wrong, because you're not. You're just starting. You should see the pages that I started with when I was in college. Like they are, trust me, we were on the same path. The only difference between me and you is like 15 years. So like, you know, Betty, her hair is like needs to be lighter so that you can see the line art. Like I know that Adam does that a lot within his pieces. You're having the same problem where you're like flattening stuff out. So like if you look at the line art, you have like a window here, and I guess here, I'm not sure about, like this is kind of a weird panel. I think this is like a window here, maybe not here. But like also the dog panel needs to be separate. And it's kind of folding in on each other. And the reason for that is the same reason that we had before, where everything's kind of like the same value. And you could take, Betty's walking through she's walking through the door. Okay, that makes sense. So here's a tip. When you're doing like a door like this with like a pane of glass, you really got to like knock out all of the line art within here. Just by doing that, like you're making it, and I guess this is this a separate panel? Adam Hughes, please get at me. We're trying to decode your work. I don't know if this is a separate panel or this is also window. I think this is window. Yeah. So by doing that, you're kind of like, yeah. So like we've made the glass, and that is just like, you know, we just washed it with a light blue to kind of like push everything back. And I would go through and like keep the open late and the Monday to Saturday part. Like I'd keep that black, but you know, we won't necessarily get into that. So now it's kind of like you're pushing them back, making it look like they're through glass. You know, Betty's coming forward. And this kind of stuff with like panels overlaying each other is a unique challenge. This is not easy stuff. And you're good for tackling it. It just kind of isn't totally working. You want to think about the page as like, what can you push forward and what can you push backwards? And the way to do that is by like, okay, so we have these leaves. I don't know if we're going to select all of these. We're going to do gorilla selections again. So the leaves are in the foreground. This one over here. And Adam made these leaves to like balance out the composition. And then we've got the dog here. And I would like darken these up. And by darkening them up, you've like pushed it forward. And then I would take the rest of it and lighten it, especially around the dog. So like, you know, we can't really, here, we can try to get underneath the black so you can kind of know what I'm talking about. So you can kind of like, you know, lighten it up a little bit. So that way this looks separate from all of this, you know? And again, you're using like texture in here, and it's flattening everything out. Like the texture looks very flat, and there should be a tilt to the perspective that's happening on that grass. And by putting in the texture, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you just put like a green, like just a green flat color, it would look a little bit better. You also, when you go in and render, you want to think about like, what is the most important thing on the page? On this page, this closing soon sign is like the big deal. So you want to like frame the characters so that like they are thinking about this closing soon sign. You know, like little shadow behind them, almost like the closing soon sign is like lighting them. And this is stuff that's like, you know, this doesn't like happen in real life. Like they wouldn't be lit like this in real life, but like this is comics, and this is like a storytelling mechanism. Like the it doesn't necessarily have to make sense, you know? So if you do this, and then like do something like that, you're kind of like, all right, we've pushed this page around now, where we've pushed the dog forward, so he's his own separate panel, and you'd render it with like, I don't know, white, you know, you'd render his hair and stuff, and keep it tighter than this. This is a disaster. Don't look at me. But yeah, so you'd like have the dog his own separate thing. You have like the crew here looking at the closing sign, and I would keep the sign red. Orange is all right, but like keep it red, so it looks like more doom and gloom kind of thing. And then you've lit them so that you can tell that they are all looking at the sign. They are not the important thing. The sign is the important thing. And then it's like them getting into the shop, and you've like eliminated, this is a challenging panel, because you're like, okay, I don't know who's through glass, who's not, what's happening here. Like you saw me struggle with it. And this way we solved all those problems. When you color something in the daytime, if you make it darker, it'll come towards you. If you make it lighter, it'll go off into the distance. If you color something at night, vice versa. If it's lighter, it'll come towards you. If it's darker, it'll go further away. So keep that in mind. Are there more of these pages? No. Did we skip something? We did not. This is also one of the pages that I really loved at your portfolio. Like out of everything you were doing, I'm fidgety. Sorry. Out of everything you were doing, I think the Sonia pages are really good. I think they're your second strongest sequential behind the zip tone ones that you were doing, the old timey pages. And the reason I think is because it's like, I can see you thinking about mood. I can see you thinking about like pushing stuff into the background. Like this panel reads really well. The only thing I think you need is to like spend a little extra time with this. That's all. Like, I understand, you know, like we're all pressed for time, and, you know, it takes as long as it takes, but, you know, I don't know, like you can take, like this page actually doesn't need a whole lot. Like you can take the background here. If it's like trying to be, you know, it's like stormy, but you can have like sun breaking through the clouds a little bit, you know, like jazz it up, right there. And that kind of like puts you here, which is like perfect. It's where you want to be. You know, you can make the lightning, if you select all the lightning and then right click and go to feather, and then do like 10 pixels or however many pixels on the original PSD, and put like a screen fill down. You can make the lightning glow. I would anchor the side of this panel by darkening the castle like that, so that we stay over here rather than like looking all around, you know. And then I would like just take what's going on here and just kind of like run a grad through it. Like, I don't think this page needs a whole lot. You know, you darken it up, it looks like they're like riding off into the darkness. You know what I mean? You create like a lot of, like, they start in a place where it's like bright and they ride off into the darkness. It tells a story. But yeah, I can see like you creating a palette in this, and I think that's the headspace you want to be, which is awesome. Yeah, that's totally the headspace you want to be in. A real quick way to like kind of like tweak your palette is using color balance. So this is like a really simple, easy way to just like, the palette's already good, but you just need like an extra nudge. You can kind of like be like, all right, maybe a little bit red, a little bit blue, maybe a little bit blue this way. Oh, now we're looking a little stormy, you know, like we can even use hue and saturation, desaturate it a little bit, and then, you know, like pop the lightning a little more, like that kind of stuff. I feel like those like little tweaks will get you like the extra mile, you know what I mean? And that stuff is so simple, you know. It's easy to do. Color balance, hue and saturation, like, will get you the extra distance. Play with the sliders, and that's the thing too. Don't be afraid to like try stuff out, because you can always go back in Photoshop. You can always save it, make a new document, try something out. Like, I don't know if you were in the stream when we were doing the Shade the Changing Girl, the previous stream, but like I tried out, I think, 4 things that just did not work, like before I got to the place I wanted to get to. Like, everybody tries shit out, you know, like it's fine. Just you know, you can always walk it back. You can always like try something else, you know, make it work. This is one of the pages where I feel like the texture is kind of like working for you, because even though you're doing the texture, you're also pushing it back in the clouds and stuff. Yeah, I think this is one of your stronger pages. What else we got? Is there more colors? No. Okay, so this is Batman stuff. I wonder. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back to the main page. All right, so we got a slew of Batman stuff after this, and a slew of Spider-Man stuff, and we'll tackle all that stuff in a second. And then more Batman stuff. It looks like you were chipping away at this stuff, which is awesome. That's what you definitely should be doing. So here's a hack and slash page. I think you got this. Yeah, K. Michael Russell. So you went through all of K. Michael Russell's stuff, and like, or I don't know if you went through all of it, but this is one of the pieces. And you're doing some like cool stuff back here, like keeping the figures separate from the backgrounds. I would like knock out all this line art back here, you know, colorize it. It'll help like move it forward. But I think this is also suffering from like, you have like the chairs being orange is really cool. Like this orange back here is like awesome. We're gonna get into Local Joe. Like you're creating like this pink, red, orange thing going on, which I dig, but I do really like it, but I think it can be like pushed. And this is the same thing. Like, I think if you just like add a little magenta, add a little red, boom. Like, the skin tones are looking a little local, like Local Joe. I think if you washed them with like a red, because everything else is so red. Like, I barely did anything. And this is a great page, you know? Like, the only thing you got to work on this page is a little bit of rendering, really. Like, remember what I was saying about like the darker stuff coming forward? If you take this cup and just like darken it, or we didn't darken, and you just like darken it up, it'll come forward and it'll anchor the bottom of the page. And then you can put like a few little shines on the cup and it'll like have the highest highs, the lowest lows. It'll pull the focus to where you want to be, because this panel is all about this cup and not about these guys, because they're mostly in shadow. So it will draw your eye, especially when you go from here to here. It'll draw your eye, and then you'll see these guys talking about whatever they got going on. But yeah, like I said, like the difference between like this and this is just like a couple sliders. That's it. Yeah, this page is good. I feel like this page should be in your portfolio. Absolutely. All right. Let's go back to the menu. Okay, this is more hack and slash stuff. I think this is the first page. So this was they're in, oh yeah, this is page 2. All right. So you have this like purple pink thing going on with the interior here, which is really good. Yeah. Like I said, you're probably going to want to upload them so that they're in order. Just to separate confusion. So by having a strong like pink and purple interior coffee shop thing going on here, you need to like offset that. A lot of coloring has to do with like, you know, when you move from room to room, the room has to change. The way like a scene changes. So like the interior here, remember we did just like quick little color balance. We even went a little more red. Here we go. A little more purple. Quick little color balance. Same thing for up here. Like we went red, so we can go like a little cooler up here. And we have like 2 separate scenes. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily where we want to be, but it separates the scenes like a little bit more clearly. It's better for you to separate the scenes more clearly than less clearly. Like if you go overboard on this, you're better off going overboard. Because the reason for that is because like when you read a comic, like me as the reader, like I want all the heads up storytelling wise I can get. And this will do that. Like if you go a little extra, I'll be like, man, Barry went a little wild on that page, but all right, you know, like, but if you don't go a little extra, I'll be like, I don't know where we are right now. And that's not where you want to do. That's not what you want to do. So yeah, I feel like with a few nudges, you can like pop those pages really, really well. Like those pages can be great in your portfolio. This stuff on the bottom, I would definitely cut. Like I was saying before, this stuff isn't professional work. Luke Boyce, this is just, you know, even if he hired you for this and you got paid for it and you feel like, and it like he printed it through like a small press thing, you gotta jettison these pages, because like even though you got good stuff going on in them, all I'm gonna see is like, oh, the guy's like struggling with faces, oh, the buildings look like a little gummy, and like, you know, like the fence is leaning over here, you know, like that's all I'm gonna see. And you want to put your best foot forward. You do have cool stuff going on in here like what I was saying before about separating scenes, you're doing that here really well. Yeah, you're doing that really well. Like, you know, you're washing it with dark blue. It's getting darker as he goes on, as like the time goes on. That's really great. You could push it further, but it looks good. Like, it looks good as is. And then like this feels different than the page before. That's all awesome, but like you just can't put these pages in. No offense to Luke, but like you just, I don't know, man. You gotta put professional foot forward. This is more K. Michael Russell stuff, which is awesome. You have 2 versions here. I assume that you like turned in this first version and then K. Michael Russell gave you some tips and then you went back and like did corrections. I think that if you're putting together a portfolio, you don't need this stuff. I know that like you're probably thinking about like, oh, well, I want to show progression and that I'm a good competent artist and I'm learning and I'm like getting better. Like I want to showcase that. Don't showcase that. Like that's cool for an Instagram feed. Like, you know, I did this and then I did this and this is me growing. That's awesome. That'll get you clicks. That'll get you like process stuff like that. Will get you clicks. That stuff's awesome. But it's just not appropriate for necessarily like a portfolio. Hey, Band Geek. Yeah, it just, and this is good. Like, why would you want to show where you were like kind of getting it wrong? Like, you want to show the stuff. You want to put your best foot forward. This page is cool. The only thing I would do for this page is like, well, there's Local Joe again. I would take the backgrounds here and just like throw a grad through it, like screen a red, or even just grab this orange. Yeah, man. Yeah. And then like you can, like I said before, screen some orange on top of the line art, make the fire glow, or like a red. You can like play with it, you know. It makes the fire feel like it's hot and on fire. And a good tip for like fire and lightsabers and laser blasts and oh, hey Nyan, how's it going? Took me a second. You're getting me out of my zone. The like a good yeah, hot. So with fire, if you have like a core that of the fire that's white, like the thing that's burning like right in here, so like not the edges but like the core of it, if you make that white, it'll look like it's burning hotter. Like it's something that mentally, like when I started coloring, I was doing the same thing you're doing, where I'm like, oh, it's all orange, you know, because fire is orange, you know. But like it's a weird thing where like if you want to make it glow, if you want to make it like look good, it's not necessarily real life, but you're cartooning real life. You're doing the same amount of cartooning that like the cartoonist is doing. And it might work for some things and not work for other things, but it's just something to like play with going forward. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Local Joe has the eyes of a killer. He does not. He's a good man. And that's it. This is more Hell on My Couch, which looks good. I can tell you're washing it with color. You know, like this page has a different vibe than this page. I can tell they're different times of day, which is awesome. This is where you want to be, 100%. All right, let's jump into the Batman and Spider-Man stuff, because those are big things. Let me consult my notes real quick. And my dude, I hope you're not getting overwhelmed, because like we're the reason I'm digging deep on this stuff. The reason that I'm digging deep is because I want to give you the best possible return on this stuff, and I want you thinking about this stuff in a good way. And I want you to come away energized. Like, you are on the path. Like, you just got to keep going, man. It's just going to take work, but you'll get there. I can tell, I feel like I can tell older pieces from newer pieces, which is a good thing. All right. So, all right, we're going to jump in the Batman and Spider-Man stuff. So let me make sure, because I took a bunch of notes. We're going to talk about local color. Okay, so here's my thing. The more it hurts, the more you'll remember this. I mean, I've talked about portfolio reviews that I've gotten that have decimated me on stream. The thing is like, you know, there's also something that to be said of like, if somebody brings it up in a portfolio review and you get the same review 3 times, then it's something you should be listening to. If like I'm the only one telling you that like one thing that you should do, then feel free to completely disregard. Like, chances are that's my personal taste and not actually something that you need to do. So you should like put your work in front of as many people as possible. And like, I don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to help you out as much as I can. The Batman stuff, like, I get we're getting like different locations from this, which is really good. But I feel like you're biting off more than you can chew. By the double page spread, we're off the rails. In that, like, you're falling into like local color stuff. And I think that part of it is that Jim's pages ask a lot of you. I tried coloring Batman black and white stuff, Jim Lee pages, when I was getting out of college in 2004, and I never showed them to anyone because like they just didn't work. Like, I couldn't, there's something about like, this is like superhero stuff with capital superhero. This is like, you know, the level of work that you have to put into a Jim Lee page as opposed to other professionals' work. Like, you know, like what's going on this page is like, you have Croc that you have to render like crazy. Like, you have to start rendering scales. You have like pieces of industrial equipment. You have a foreground, middle ground, extreme background. You have Catwoman back here that you have to highlight, and you have to successfully juggle that with the fact that she also needs to be pushed back within the frame. You have to push this character forward that has to be identifiable next to Batman, and she's in a suit and Batman is in a dark suit. So like, you have to juggle that as well. He, I don't know. And then like, you have the moon back here and you're using texture, and I've seen you use texture a lot. I would abandon that. Like, when you use texture, it tends to flatten things out. And when you're using texture here and you're using texture here, and these are like 2 sides of a building, you want to shade one side of the building and leave a light side of the building. You want to think about it like a cube with a light hitting it. But like, Jim Lee's page is asking you to juggle all this, and then it's saying, okay, now render like a half a page of cape. And it's like, oh my God, like, this page is a beast for me to do. You know, like, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I don't know if I could color a Jim Lee book, like, straight up. I could give it a shot. We should give it a shot on stream, by the way. But this is like when I did, I don't know if you were around when I did the Spider-Man 2099 page. We did a double page spread of Spider-Man 2099, and I think it took like 10 hours total for me to get done. And it was the same thing. It had different levels of foreground, middle ground, background. It was juggling all these assets that were like in different pieces. It's just really, really hard. So like, I admire you for taking it on, because holy God, man, you are gutsy. But like, this stuff is not going to put your best foot forward. My advice to you, like, you really have to have a handle on scene transitions. You really have to have a handle on character rendering. You have to have a handle on environmental rendering. It's just like, it's just too much. And it can be something that you can like chip away at, but like, you also have to like get in the mentality of like, okay, we're going to do this page and it's going to take a long time. Like, you're not going to get these pages done in one sitting. And you just got to get in that mentality of like, this is going to take as long as it takes, you know? So like, we're at page 7, and then we go to 7, 8, 9. So like, you're kind of setting up like, here's something that I'm like, what I was talking about is, so Batman's in the interior here, and then he's in the exterior here, but he has the same skin tone. So already I can tell that like, as a viewer, as like a reader, that you're getting so caught up with everything Jim's doing, like, cause he's doing so much in this panel, and you're thinking about all this stuff, all this rigging, all, like these things, and you're thinking about like how to make sure the space is noticeable, that you're like, you've stopped thinking about not having it in local color. Like Nimish said, not thinking in local colors is really hard. It is. So like, it's just too much. Like, I wouldn't put these pages in your portfolio. You did a lot of work on this stuff, and you know, work for work's sake is really good. Like, you probably learned a lot about like what your threshold is for pages, and like trying to do texture stuff. You probably learned a lot about that. Like, take those lessons, transfer them to another page, like get these pages out of your portfolio, or maybe just like keep simple pages like this, and like maybe tweak it. You know what I mean? 'Cause like, it's just, man, it's just too much. So I wrote down, I was like, when I was looking at these pages, you know, like Jim Lee has all these issues that you got to solve, right? When you're looking for professional work, the way to put your best foot forward is to look for pages that maybe, you now know how hard of a worker you are, and that's good for talking to people, but before that, you need better art. Yeah. So like, I would look at people like Mike Mignola, or like Jeff Smith pages from Bone would be really good. Stuff that's less superhero-y with a capital superhero. That will, like, or Chris Somney pages would be really good. Like, Chris Somney does something within his superhero pages where he has solved lighting problems and framing problems that you don't necessarily have to think about. Like, he's thought about it already. You just have to step in and like keep going. You know what I mean? And like with this, Jim is like, here's a super detailed picture of Batman and Croc fighting. Go nuts. You know, like, it's just like, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of talking myself in circles here. There's some things that, like, if you do want to like go in and fix stuff, like I said, with separating foreground and middle ground, the suitcase here should come forward, darken that up, lighten up the rest of it. And when you lighten up the rest of it, really lighten it up, the building back here, you can knock out the line art, and that'll push the building way back. And not all artists gel together. Yeah, that's another thing, is like, you just might not gel with Jim Lee's stuff, like, which doesn't make you worse or better. Sometimes it's just about finding like where you like have your niche at, you know? That's a very good point. Like, I personally, so there's an artist that I colored on Flash Rogues Rebellion. He started the arc, Patrick Zinshur. I see him post on Twitter all the time, and I know his like post name, but I'm blanking on his actual name now. But like for whatever reason, I always felt like I couldn't make his pages work, and I've had 2 opportunities of like working with him, and like every time I feel like it's just like a little outside of my grasp, like just something's a little bit wrong. And it doesn't make me a bad colorist or him a bad artist. It's just like I see other colorists tackle him and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, he should work with them, you know. Searcher, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Patrick's a good dude too. I would kind of like another shot, but I don't know if I deserve another shot. So, I mean, like, so the Batman pages have like a ton of, but like this Batman page, these Batman pages are a little simpler. And whoa, too hot for Twitch. But I would not include that in a portfolio, by the way. But like the 2 pages beforehand, these pages, like this light trail looks fantastic. You know, you're washing the whole thing with blue. The little knockouts for the lights here are really awesome. Like this page works. I would try to create some depth of field here by lightening up like this stuff and then darkening up the mansion in the background, like blending it into the night sky a little more. But like, and then you can also like put some highlights on the bars and stuff like that. Like just taking like a little extra momentum or a little extra time and sitting down and like revisiting pages. You can add a little bit more, like a little shine on the tailpipe, a little shine on the wheel wells here, on the tire, on her suit, you know, like just like adding a little bit extra can go a long way. You know, like the bike is all kind of like one color here. Like you can kind of like tweak the colors of the bike and get it to where you need to get it. But these pages look good. I would just not include that last page because you don't, it's just like you don't want to include stuff that's too X-rated or whatever. Like you don't want that, even if it doesn't really show anything. Like you just don't want to go there. Yeah. All right. The Spider-Man pages I think are your weakest. I think they're the weakest in the portfolio. I don't know if you did these previous to K. Michael Russell stuff or not. But so you're running into the same problems that you were kind of running into in the Catwoman page, but to a greater extent, where it's like, dude, like if the guy drew the stuff, you got to kind of like do the stuff. Like he drew these windows, you got to put windows in. He drew, you know, like, and there's simple things you can do too, where like, so you can just like this stuff's all like roped in. Like you can just quickly, oh, well, those were not roped in, but for the most part, like you can just like, it doesn't take a whole lot of time. You gotta like, this is not a finished cityscape. These look kind of like flats. You know what I mean? You gotta like do all the windows. And then when you color something like this, when you color a cityscape, you want to think of it like things have a light side and a dark side to them, like all the buildings, especially if it's like a daytime scene. And you can do like, I'm not even criticizing the color. Like you can get like wild colors down. If you look at like Megan Wilson's work on the Unstoppable Wasp with Elsa, she like buildings are like lime green and they're like, you know, they're like all over the place. And it works. It's cool. Like you can do that. I think buildings are really difficult. It's 5 o'clock. For me personally, I think buildings are really difficult. You're getting a little dark here, by the way, with your color. You're gonna start to drown out the line art. I think buildings are really difficult because to me they're just gray boxes and it's tough to get them to be interesting. But it looks like you don't have that problem. So like if you put like a light side with a dark side, like you kind of create a three-dimensional space. And then you got to go in and like do these details, man. You got to do the windows. You got to do like the air conditioners. You got to like, and if you got to send pages to like a flatter before working on them, like that might be a good investment for you. Like if trying to handle all these windows and like, cause this is a lot of work, you know, I don't fault you for this. This is a ton of work. Send it to a flatter, you know, get them to flat it and then pay for it. And then, you'll put a better foot forward. Another reason why I think these are your weakest pages is because there's no solid color scheme happening. Like Peter's doing like regular local color, but like you're also doing this wild kind of mauve, purple that's happening in here. And like Peter's skin tones, Mary Jane's skin tones, his jacket, it all needs to reflect that like mauve kind of color. Again too, like hold on, I'm gonna catch up on chat real quick. What I was gonna say was you got to work on professional pages, and these like kind of hover the line. These are like not quite professional, not quite amateur, but like I don't know that they necessarily put your best foot forward. Like this kind of stuff on the mask looks kind of weird. The size relationship between Rhino and this car is kind of weird. These figures are like kind of wonky. Like by picking these pages, you're not putting your best foot forward. There's cool stuff happening in here though. Like you know, the like colors on the buildings I really enjoy. I just feel like you got to take it one more step. You got to do the windows and stuff. Like this stuff I think is like really cool. You do not have the problem that I have where like I'm like gray box. Like you kept it like visually interesting. You just like didn't take it further. But I would abandon these. So if I were you, okay, all right, we've talked about everything you got going on. It's been like an hour and 19. These are the oldest pages, dude. I can tell. Yeah, like I can tell that you're like toying with stuff, but you're not like thinking about it yet. So if I were you, I would 100% cut all the pinups. So like Schoonover page, Stegman, maybe put one. You get one good one, okay? Pick one that you love, keep it. But I would cut like the Dark Legacy cover. I would cut the markers, you know, so like basically all this stuff, and then like all the Batman stuff I would cut, all the Spider-Man stuff I would cut. Maybe pick a few less challenging Batman pages and like overhaul them, work on them a little bit. Like, you know, but don't do pages like this. Don't be like, hey, it's a sequential page, because it's not. It's a pinup. I would pick less challenging pages like this of Batman fighting Croc and kind of like tweak it and then keep it. Less background heavy stuff that like Jim does. Like when you start to overlay panels and stuff like this, you start to get into like problems. It makes it really hard. So yeah, I would tweak some of the Batman stuff. Keep that. I would cut the Spider-Man stuff. I would cut all the pinups except for maybe the Schoonover one. Schoonover one I might keep. I'd keep the Conan page and Red Sonja page. And I'd tweak the hack and slash page and keep that. I would keep the critical hit. I mean, it's really a pinup, but it looks great. You know, like, you're doing good work in there. I might colorize the smoke in it now that I'm thinking about it. But what I would say you've got like two things that you need to work on. One of them is something that I'm trying to work on as I'm starting to draw a little bit more, and that is like, have patience when you're working on something. The page is going to take as long as it takes, and you can try stuff out that's going to fail. You're going to miss Local Joe. We're getting into Local Joe right now. Yeah, you can try stuff out that's going to fail. It's totally fine. And then, like, you know, give it a day, let your eyes rest, come back to it and be like, is this working? Is this not working? I don't know. But, you know, if you do want to like break into coloring too, I understand that, like, you know, working on something like this is a lot of hours of your time. Like, I get that. There are little things that you can do to kind of like, you know, practice daily. Or maybe even not. I mean, I'm trying to do daily drawings with the sketchbook challenge, but I've probably only done about 25 this month. There are things like, so I made Local Joe for you. Local Joe is local colors. He's, you know, you don't have to think about rendering him. You don't even have to think about like background stuff. You don't have to think about anything. All you think about with Local Joe is making a solid color scheme. Local Joe is local colors, and we want to get you away from local colors. So like, you can take him and be like, all right, Local Joe, you're definitely in a snowstorm, in the worst snowstorm of your life. Or you can be like, all right, Local Joe, your house is on fire. You know, like, you can take Local Joe and just, like, I would say once a day, just take like 10 minutes, boot up Photoshop, like you're having dinner, you're before you go to bed or whenever, like, take 10 minutes out of your day and just like take Local Joe and be like, all right, Local Joe, you're at a disco club today. You know, like, make a color scheme and realize that, like, okay, this is reading as yellow. It started as yellow, but like now it's this pink, you know, just take it, wash it with a color. Like, there's 30% green, and that 30% green is making Local Joe not local anymore. He's not local color. He's like a little more interesting. He's a little more interesting, which is where you want to be with the color. It's tough when you're working on a page and you're hours and hours in to like keep this foresight. So I would say, you know, mess around with Local Joe, try to keep your game up, just like, and then like save ones that you think are particularly good color schemes and then transfer those color schemes to other stuff. The reason that Local Joe is in a red shirt with a blue background and a yellow hat is because he has like all these basic primary colors. So you don't like the 30% green? Wow. We're going to go 30% green. But I mean, you can even like tweak it from here. Like, I'm saying if you do 30% green, you're going to end up in a place that's more interesting. Like, he's 30% green. The background's now bright yellow. Like, you're always, when painters paint, they mix colors. They don't use colors right out of the tube. That's Pukey Joe. Local Joe meets Radiation Leak. Yeah. So, and this is a tip that I would give anyone. So when a painter paints, they put a color out of the tube down on their palette, and they mix stuff in. They mix a little bit of white, a little bit of blue, a little bit of whatever. Like they tweak it so that it's not, if it's right out of the tube, if it's right from the color picker, then like you're gonna end up with color that is not complex, that is not great. So I think that I think we've kind of hit everything. I would start there, because I think you have, I know you have the capacity for this, because I'm seeing you mess with it. I'm going to show you a little bit of rendering stuff. I wouldn't don't be too hard on yourself with any of this stuff, really. Because all of this stuff is just time and patience and practice. And speed will come to you the more you do stuff, and the rendering will come to you the more that you do stuff. So this piece right here, we're gonna render his chest. So this is like a complex thing going on here, and you've chose to render every ab. First of all, I wouldn't do that, because by carefully rendering the abs here, you're making a choice for the line art, and it's not correct. The abs actually go out to here ish. So we're gonna tweak that right here. Let me show you. So after we're gonna do that, I'm gonna show you a quick and easy way for you to think about how to render. So we're going to do just the chest here. If you take a gradient tool and you take your darkest value, and this is we could probably go darker, so I'm going to use multiply, just because I want to go a little bit darker. But if you take your darkest value and you just cast it through the whole thing, you've already added a lot more depth. We're gonna actually use a darker value, because I wanna definitely show you what's going on here. So by doing that, you can then take highlights using your brush. You can take highlights from up here and use them down here. So you can kind of be okay, we're gonna 50% of the highest high, and we're gonna highlight here. And this is abs are the weirdest thing to work out. Yeah. So this kind of and instead of thinking of the drawing as flat, we're thinking okay, this is coming towards the camera right here. So these are the highest highs. And then it's like a sphere or a tube. It moves like this, so highest highs here. So we're gonna this peck is we're gonna do this highest high, and then we're gonna do this is kind of a tube here, and this is kind of a tube here, and this one's gonna be pushed further back, but we're gonna accentuate it a little bit. And then by doing that, by thinking about it like a tube rather than a flat image that you gotta kind of embrace where the lines are, we've created more depth to it. And if once you get a hold of something like this, then you can start to do more complex shades and stuff like that. The thing with this is this is just time, and this is life drawing. This is all the years of life drawing at college, and all the experience I have coloring all these years make it a little easier on me. if it's something that you think is particularly challenging, you can go to Amazon and just buy like these anatomy artist like figures, or you can even use like an action figure and a little flashlight and just like light it and just see how it falls on the figure, the lights and shadows. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just like you just like tweak it, like take a picture with your cell phone, set it aside, and render, you know? And I guarantee you will up your render game. And it's like such a small thing you can do to do that. So yeah, what I would do if I were you is, first of all, if you want to like tool around on pinups, that's fine. But if you want to get coloring jobs, stay with professional line art, stay with stuff that's you know, sequentials. We're wrapping up, so I'm gonna talk to you directly. Give them all beer guts. It's the future of superhero bodies. No. So my dude, Barry, we just talked about your work for an hour and a half. Thank you so much. Like, it is amazing that you were the first to you know, throw your work down. It's so gutsy. It's commendable. And I respect anyone that's trying to do work in comics and trying to do work in art. Like, it's great that you're creating. And you are totally on the path. Like, I don't think that you should come away with this being like, Nickfil already hated my stuff. Because there's a lot of like cool stuff you had going on there. There was a lot of like gutsy decisions that I really enjoyed. So yeah, people in the chat are like, this is great. Thanks. It helped me out too. Yeah. So like, I would just work on local color stuff, try to avoid local color, use washes, think about where you want to end up. Like everybody wants to jump into the rendering. Pump the brakes, try some washes, get the color scheme right, and then jump into the rendering. If you try to skip steps, you will always lose. Always. I try to skip steps all the time to this day, and I will always lose. So yeah, I would if you don't have time to do like a full page or a full pinup, you should casually tackle Local Joe. Like, just make some color schemes. I would, you know, if you're going to sit down and do a page, do a Local Joe first. Not even to make a scheme for that page, but just to like exercise your brain. You know what I mean? Like, warm up a little bit. Think about stuff that's not local color. I would, you know, it'd be great. Local Joe is actually like a great Instagram thing too. Like, it's not necessarily like something you would put in your portfolio, but you could be like, hey, I've been brainstorming color schemes all week or all month. Here's like a 10-page Local Joe like album, you know, like that's cool. You know, like I like that stuff. You'd probably dig it. So yeah, I would just think about that stuff more often. It seems like you are, so just keep doing what you're doing, man. Like, just keep putting the work in. Keep making comics. Like, you're gonna get there. And I hope that you're gonna take all this conversation that we had, and then look at your portfolio, tighten it up, and then make some new pages, and then I hope you come back. I want to see you grow, man. I want to pull you up. I want you up here with me. So please do that. But for now, the Local Joe, by the way, I put him in the Discord. We'll put him in the chat over here. Hold on one second. I have a Dropbox link for Local Joe. If anybody wants to like mess with color schemes, by all means, do it up. Like, there you go. It's something that's very easy, that anyone can do. Just drop it into Photoshop, start messing around. Yeah. So again, Barry, thank you. Um, everybody else, don't fake McCoy. Don't violate Local Joe. He's a good man. We're gonna do. Hopefully, we're gonna do some Judge Dredd soon. I keep talking about it, but Boix, your request is sitting with me. Chad is gonna send us some stuff. We're gonna mess with some digital painting. Get outside my comfort zone very soon. God, blood on Local Joe's shirt. It's already red. You can't do that. So we're gonna be doing some Judge Dredd stuff soon. Hopefully, we're gonna be doing some. I want to start building some cloud assets and talking about assets within art and how to use them appropriately. We're gonna do that soon. What else we got going on? We're gonna do some digital painting stuff. Get out of my comfort zone. I'm gonna be doing it live, and I have no idea what I'm doing, so it's gonna be great. At any rate, thank you again, Barry. I hope the portfolio review was constructive for you. I think you're on the path. You just got to keep going. Until then, until next stream, keep making comics, guys, and I'll see you soon.